Having said that, let's spend some time looking at what is it that a business analyst does, and you know, and then we can focus on how we are structuring our course. Okay. So if you look at a typical IT project, right? So there are two main stakeholders. One is the business team, right? Now these guys know what is it that the application should be, application should be doing, right? So the functionality is what these guys would be defining it. Unfortunately, they cannot do the programming themselves because they lack the technical skills. Okay? So they have to depend on the technology teams for you know uh, for developing the system. Right now, the problem comes in when there would be a disconnect between the business team and the technical teams. Right? So either the business is not able to articulate the requirements or the technology teams are not able to understand the requirements. Now, a lot of the projects fail because of the lack of clarity of the requirements. The business says something, the technology understands something else, right? And they could only sync up at the time of testing, and it leads to a lot of disagreements. The business says that, hey, this is not what I wanted to get out of the system, and the technology team says that, hey, this is what you told me and this is what I understood, right? Now, how do we solve this problem, right? So if I give this responsibility to the business team and say that, hey, you ensure that you communicate all the requirements to the technical team, it's your responsibility. Maybe that's not fair because the business team doesn't know what all technical team needs to know, right? So there is always a possibility that he could miss out on some aspects of the requirement, or he might not be sure of what all needs to be communicated, right? So putting the onus onto the business team is not the right way, right? Similarly, if you look at the technical teams, right, so they're specific, they're experts in a particular specific technology, right? So they're like experts in Pega or .NET or Java, right? So they're experts in the technology, right? Now, if you ask them, you have to ask all those right questions and ensure that the requirement is complete. They don't know how to do it, right? So it's a new thing for them. And if somebody explains the requirement to them clearly, all the possible scenarios and all the complete requirement, they'll ensure that it's delivered in that, um, meeting those standards, right? Now, that is where exactly a business analyst is going to, add value to the project, right? So a business analyst would be the liaison between these teams, right? So he would ensure that he owns the requirements. Okay, so he picks up the requirements or the functionality from the business team, right? And have to document it in such a way that the technical team can clearly understand, right? So basically, what he's trying to do is he's trying to bridge this gap, right? He's trying to reduce the disconnects between the business and technology teams. Okay. Now, how can he do this? He can do this because of two main skills. His ability to talk to the business team and understand the requirements, his requirement elicitation skills. He'll know all the skills, how to engage the business and ensure that all aspects of the requirements are understood. Okay? So the first step of this process is that he has to understand the requirements himself. And once he understands it, he has to document it such that the technical team can understand, right? So he knows how to effectively document the requirements as well, right? So that's the two main skills that that you as a business analyst bring onto the table, right? So you're you're talking to the business team, understanding the requirement, and then you're documenting it in a such a way that the technical team can clearly understand the requirements, right? So these are the two main skills that you as a business analyst bring onto the table. Okay, and a lot of guys have this questions, and a lot of people ask me also when they come over for first session, and they have this at the back of their mind. Do I need to be a expert in some technology or some some domain or industry? Like, do I need to be a banking expert or a healthcare expert? Do I need to be an expert in Java or Pega or .NET, right? So these questions keep coming up, right? Now, it's fair to have those questions, because as a business analyst, we are expected to manage the requirements, or we are expected to communicate the requirements to the technical teams, right? So it's fair enough that these questions come in, right? But if you look at it, closely, we are not replacing neither the business nor the technology teams. Okay, so we are not replacing the business team. So we don't need to be an expert in the business, or the functionality that is being defined, right? So there is a specific guy sitting here doing that activity, right? So the business team is expected to tell you the functionality. So what are you doing? You're ensuring that all possible scenarios, all aspects of the requirement is 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 documented clearly, right? So you're owning the requirement and ensuring that it's completely documented and understood from the business team, right? So your elicitation skills are important and not the business understanding, right? So you're not expected to define the requirement. You're expected to understand and document the requirement. Okay, so the requirement always comes from the business team, and they are experts in the business. We are not trying to replace them, right? The next question: do I need to be an expert in technology, right? So or Java or .NET, or so we are not. Why? Because there are technical teams to do that. Okay, all we are going to do is that we are effectively communicating the requirements to these technology teams so that they can design and develop the system. So you'll have you'll have architects, you'll have developers who are going to design and develop the system, right? So we are not replacing them, right? So a lot of people ask these questions: do I need to have a healthcare background or a banking background, or do I need to know some technology, right? If you have, it's well and good. It works to your advantage maybe. But if you don't, that's not a necessary skill for a business analyst. What is necessary is your ability to understand the requirements and ability to document the requirements. Now, at this point in time, if I ask you, how do you go about understanding the requirements, right? Let's say, I bring out a project. Maybe, I'll bring out one complex project and then say, let's say, a, a claim settlement system for the insurance industry, right? So that, okay, you're assigned to this project. Now go about and understand the requirements, right? So you'll have no clue at this point in time of how to start, how to structure discussions, what are the various ways in which I can engage them. Should I conduct an interview? Should I conduct a workshop? Do I need to do a prototyping session or a reverse engineering session, right? We'll have no clue at this point in time, right? Now, as part of this course, you learn how to structure your discussions, how to approach this, a project where you have no clue about it, and then ensure that you capture those requirements completely from the business team, right? So that is basically your elicitation skills. Okay, so there are broadly 10, 11 different ways in which you can engage them. Okay, so yeah, so that's the first thing. All right, you're basically understanding the requirements from the business team. So you learn those various skills of how to engage them and understand that, right? The next challenge is as you understand, you also have to ensure that it's documented, because you're not just going to sit with the technical team and then explain them verbally, right? A lot of it is going to be documented, right? And this document, we call it as a business requirements document, right? So we prepare a business requirement document. One more person joining in. Neil, can you hear me? Neil Kamal?
Yeah, hi. I just joined now.
All right. Hey, Neil, we started like 15-20 minutes earlier.
Okay.
And this is the first session. Don't worry about it. You didn't miss much, and we are recording the session as well. You'll get that. So I'll do a quick recap. But our session starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So guys, from tomorrow on, just make sure that we log in at that time. So that
actually, what time I got is like 6 p.m. PST. So
there could be some confusion. All right, I know. Because it goes through the coordinators and it's all over the place, and sometimes it happens. So just avoid the confusion. So today's session, you're not going to miss anything, right? Anyway, it's more of an overview, and I'm trying to elaborate about the role of a business analyst in this session.
Okay.
The actual course will start from tomorrow or so. And that's where I'm being a little clear about the timing, so that we don't get confused there. So 8 p.m. Eastern is the time. I know you guys are in different time zones. Just make sure that you log in at that time, right? So convert it to your time zones.
Okay. Yes.
So I'll do a quick recap in a minute, and then we'll continue from there, right? So, guys, if I'm repeating the rest of you, please bear with me, because we have people joining in, and unless they get a context, it's difficult to understand. Right? Okay. So if you look at a typical project, right? So there are two main stakeholders: the business people who know the requirement, who know what all features or functionality should go into the system, and then you have technology teams, okay, who basically would know the technicals, would have the technical skills to develop that software. Right? Now the problem comes in when they can't communicate, or there is a disconnect between their understanding about the requirement. Okay, and that is basically the gap that we as a business analyst are trying to solve. Right? So how do we do that? We do that by two main skills: our elicitation skills. Right? So we know how to structure our discussions, how to understand the requirement completely from the business team, right? So there are 10, 11 different ways in which you can engage them. You could do interviews, you could do workshops, you could do prototyping sessions, you could do JAT sessions, right? So there are different ways in which you can engage the customer. So you'll learn all those techniques in subsequent sessions, right? So you'll basically know how to structure those discussions, how to manage the scope. So all of that you would learn as part of the course in the first few sessions. So where we focus on our elicitation skills. Now, once we understand the requirement, then we'll have to document it. Okay, so that the technical team can also understand it clearly. Now, there are different ways of documentation. Now you have a use case framework. Then when you work in agile, there are user stories, right? So then there are different other techniques like process flows or wireframes, or different ways in which you can document the requirements. And when you're working your traditional model, you create a document called as a business requirements document. And when you're working in agile, you'll have to create the user stories, right? So broadly, that's how you document your requirements. Okay, so you need to know how to document, and what are these different techniques of representing the requirements as well, right? So that's another skill that you'll have to develop to perform the role of a business analyst. I would say these two are the most important skills of a business analyst. Close to 70-75% of your time you spent on these two, right? So you'll spend on understanding requirements and documenting them, right? You also do a few other things which I have listed down here, like you'll help the business understand and identify new opportunities, right? what project should they take up, right? So and what should be the scope of it, and whether it's profitable or not, right? So you help the team, the business team, decide that and create a business case document. Right? So a business case is a deliverable coming out here. Right? So usually the senior management would be in a position to decide whether to invest in a project or not after looking at the business case. Okay, so you need to know how to create business cases as well. And once the business case is approved, budgets are allocated to the project. Right, so the core team is onboarded, and then a planning exercise happens. While the project manager leads it, you also contribute to the requirement related planning. You bring in all those requirement related frameworks like change management or scope management. So you need to know how to structure those frameworks into the project as well. Okay. So you also help the business team validate the requirements, right? So when the technical team develop the system and then they bring it back to the business team, so they'll have to test and validate the solution. They need to look at the application and then see whether it's working correctly, whether it's all the requirements that they've asked for are met or not, right? So you generally work with them to coordinate those testing, and in case some defects are identified, you help them in doing any analysis onto that, and figuring out where exactly the problem is and communicating it back to the technical team, right? So there is a role that you play as part of the testing as well, primarily the functional testing, I would say. So we'll learn about that as well. And overall, you need to know about how to manage the communications with all the various stakeholders, right? Because you're the glue here, right? You're holding the business, the technical, and even the testing teams, and ensuring that all of these guys are connected. Okay, so that's broadly what a business analyst is, expected to do in a project, right? I'll take a pause here. Any questions related to the role of a business analyst? Let's spend some time. Post that, I'll talk about how we are structuring the course and what we are going to learn from tomorrow on. Okay. Any questions you have, feel free to ask, guys. You don't really have to hold back. Another important thing I'll say is that there are no prerequisites for the course, right? So I don't expect you to know anything about how IT projects are run, or what a business analyst is expected to do, right? So that puts you in a very comfortable position. You can ask any question, right? And in fact, a lot of you guys who join this course are like that. So don't worry about what the other folks are going to think about it or not, right? So in fact, you'll be doing them a favor by asking questions. The more interactivities, the better it would be. Okay. Yeah. So guys, at least clear about the role of a business analyst. You understand at a very high level what is expected out of a business analyst now?
Yes. Or doc. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'll spend some more time today explaining about how our course is going to be structured, and then from tomorrow on, I think we'll stick to our time, 8 p.m. So it would be the same link, guys. You log in into the same link, but 8 p.m. Eastern time is what we'll log in and continue our session from tomorrow on. Yeah. So the first few sessions, I'll spend time explaining how the IT industry is structured, and you'll get a lot more clarity on who are all the other people working in a typical project or in a typical client and vendor organizations, and what is the governance structure, the hierarchy, and what are their roles and responsibilities, right? So it will put you into a comfortable position once you're into a job, right? So see, when you're working as a business analyst, or in fact for any other role in the for that matter, right? So it's not only important that you know about your responsibilities, right? So you also need to know what the other folks are doing, right? So because what is expected out of you and what is expected out of the other person, you should fairly have some high level view about it, right? Now you'll be interacting with various people, right? You'll interact with your project manager, your architects, your developers, the SMEs, subject matter experts from the business team, right? You need to know what they are expected to do in the project as well. Okay, so the initial few sessions would help you, get that view, right? And you'll also understand the various phases of a project, right? So when an IT project is executed, what are all the steps involved in it? What phases are there? And what are the variations of that? Uh, you know, uh, Different type of projects or SDLC models, as we call it, software development lifecycle. More about that in tomorrow's session anyway. So we'll focus the initial 2-3 sessions on that, right? And then we would learn all those 6 things that I just mentioned in the previous slide. Okay, the 6 knowledge areas, and these are coming in from a renowned source called IIBA. Now these are the folks who offer the certification for CBAP, Certified Business Analyst Professional. Now the course is aligned to that syllabus, and we are following that business analyst book of knowledge as a baseline for our course. And what you're going to learn would be all the topics covered in that, right? Now another unique thing about the course, like I said, it's all project driven, right? Now when we start the project tomorrow, right, so our hours would be batch number 60, and we'll start off with an example, right? So for this particular batch 59, I took up an example for mobile banking, right? So you'll have a list of features or scope that you agree on when you start your project in your real life, right? So when we start our project also, our course also, we'll pick up a small project with a limited scope. And throughout the course, we would actually um, we would be creating our requirements documents for this particular scope, right? So how do we analyze the requirements? How do we structure our discussions? What questions to ask? How do we understand the requirements, and then how do you document them using various techniques like maybe process flows, wireframes, metadata tables, right? So there are a lot of things that you would use to document your requirements. Okay, so how do you structure all of these and create your final BRDs? What you would learn, right? So it's not just theoretical concepts that we would learn. So whatever we would learn, we'll also spend some time and create some deliverables for this project, right? So this is and this way, you'll get that real time experience, okay, of how exactly we are going to create in the what deliverables we are going to create, and how it would be in the industry. You'll get that you know um, understanding of at least one project in this. Now it's up to us of what projects that we can pick up for our course, which we'll decide maybe a couple of sessions down the lane once we complete our initial overview and orientation sessions, right? Um, and you don't have to worry about the recordings and all, right? Everything is like um, well organized. Like I said, we've been doing this for the last 5 years. So you'll get access to these portals once you confirm your registration, and all the recordings will be uploaded onto the portal where you can just log in and then view it at any time. Even after the course is completed, you'll have access to this, and then you can view your recordings at any point in time. Okay. I'll also spend a minute in explaining about the training material of what you'll get over here. You don't worry about taking notes, because all of that is available for you onto the portal, right? So you have all the PowerPoints that I'm just going to um, going to use. It's all there onto the SharePoint or the drive that I'm going to share with you, right? So you can download them. There would also be a lot of additional reading material, right? So which you can read further to get into a little more detail if you want, and some I'll also have some some curated documents on special topics, like maybe a session on Visio or SQL commands, or some of those. We also have some interview prep questions, like what kind of questions would be asked, general questions, and what kind of answers to provide onto that. Right? We also have a copy of the Business Analyst Book of Knowledge, uh, which is given by IBA. So there are a lot of reading material that you get into this from this folder, right? The other important thing is the templates, I would say, right? By now you would have realized a lot of our deliverables are documents, right? So all our BRDs or the change requests or maybe the interfaces or the test plans or test cases, all of these are documents. Okay, so how are these documents structured? What is it that we have to um, add on to this? We'll learn all of that in when we uh, look at these templates. Okay, uh, and yeah, all the project documents also will be there so that now you have access to them, and you can copy that. You'll also have some sample resumes here, which you can refer to when you're updating your resumes, right? So all of that will be available for you to download, right? Um, yeah, I'll leave that with a few questions that I can take, and then I'm keeping this short today because I know a lot of people joining midway, and I would want to spend some time answering your questions, and then from tomorrow on we'll start the first topic of our course, which is the industry overview and role of a business analyst. Okay.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes, Raj.
So the project that we're going to be doing, is it going to be complex enough where we could potentially add it to our resume?
Right. Now, that's a good question, Zahid, right? So I did a couple of initial, sessions with some complex projects, right? So which you can actually use in the real life. But, the more the complex the project is, the focus was tending towards the functionality, understanding the functionality rather than, learning the process or the concept, underlying concept, right? Now, that's where I started picking up some projects which are like which you can use in your resumes as well as and which are easier to understand. Like the mobile banking app, I find it really good because all of us use a mobile banking app. We know the functionality. Having said that, it's a complex system, right? Now, if I
Right.
pick up something like, let's say, a claims management system or a compliance system, right? So which are co- functionally complex, right? So the functionality is really complex, and then you need to spend a lot of time understanding that, right? Now we are digressing from our core topic, right? So our intention is to learn the process, not the requirement of one particular project. All right. Now,
Yeah.
so that is where I'll have to balance it between taking a complex project or and focusing onto the requirement, because see, all these projects that I'm showing up, I would have taken like 2-3 months to complete that requirements document. Now it's not fair to uh, expect that you'll understand that and complete everything in like 25-26 hours, right? So
Yeah.
so that's where I'm trying to draw a balance, and I pick up some projects which are which are good, where you have some understanding about the requirement, like a mobile banking app or maybe a e-commerce website, right? Where it's a complex system, but having said that, you also have that functional understanding, so that you don't spend too much time on understanding the functionality, right? We focus on how to structure those discussions and how to what kind of questions to ask, and then we'll be able to define the requirement ourselves, and our focus would be more on how to document it then. So that way
Okay.
it will serve both the purposes. You can still put that onto your resumes, as well as you conceptually understand everything.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, any other questions, guys?
Hi, actually, I have a query.
Yes,
Shabdi.
yeah.
Yeah. Do we need to go through any certification for this BA? Like, which will add on for our resume or?
So, see, there is a organization called IIBA, International Institute of Business Analysis. Now, they offer the certification. But see, and the most popular among them is a Certified Business Analyst Professional. It's also called a CBAP. Maybe, you can search about that after the session.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, to take CBAP certification, you need to have some work experience. Okay. So you should have worked as a business analyst and then you're eligible to take that certification. Now there are IIBA also introduced a couple of certifications for freshers, but they're not valued so much, right? So the industry, when you apply for your jobs, right? They would prefer somebody with a CBAP certification, but that's never going to be a mandatory criteria, right? So it depends on how you would look at it, whether you want that to be a mandatory one or, you definitely want to do a certification or not. That's left for you to decide. But what all I can say is that while it's valued, nobody says that okay, no, I need only a person with a CBAP certification, right? So it's not a mandatory thing that you have to have that certification, then only I'll pick it up, right? So a lot of it depends upon how your interview goes on. They'll try to gauge your knowledge and skills on this for this role, and then they're going to decide, right? So it's not going to be a decider, is what I would say, right? It would definitely uh, add value if you have the certification, but that's not going to be a decider. So nobody's going to reject you because you don't have a certification. And there are not too many people. Yeah. And there are not too many people who have that certification as well. So that's fairly, very less people take up that certification again because of the cost and then the process involved in it. So and the industry also understands that. They know that the number of people who are having that certification is less, and and see, if you look at what CBAP mandates and what the industry also looks at it, they're not completely aligned, right? So industry looks out for a specific set of activities or skills that we need to be able to do, and the CBAP certification has its own definition of a business analyst, right? So if I pick up a topic like testing, right? Now, as a business analyst, you're not expected to do anything about testing from CBAP perspective, right? But when you go back to the industry, they would definitely want you to coordinate the testing, analyze the defects, help out the technical team, even validate some of the deliverables from the QA teams, right? So you are expected to learn something or know something about testing, right? So that's where the expectations also would differ. Now, what I'm offering is I'm picking up the best of both, right? So I'm ensuring that we are comprehensively covering what CBAP is mentioning and what the industry also wants. Like I said, I've been doing this for the last 5 years, and every time the new batch starts, I ensure that it keeps on adding up to the course. Like when we started earlier, we didn't have agile as a mainstream way of executing projects. But if you look at the current situation, a lot of organizations are moving to agile. In fact, I think a couple of years down the lane, that would become the mainstream technique. Right? So we'll have to adjust the course, and we'll ensure that it's meeting the current industry needs, so that you're job ready. Okay. Yeah. To answer your point to the question that you have asked, certification adds value, but it's not a mandatory thing that without certification you cannot get into it. So that is how I look at it.
And one more question, how useful is this course, from a person like me who's not at all into a IT background?
Yeah. So I think So I tried to answer that question, right? So, you are not replacing business people, you are not replacing technical people, right? So you don't need to know business, you don't need to know technology. All you need to know is how to connect them, through your illustration and
correct.
documentation techniques, right? So which you're learning in this course. You'll learn about how to structure your discussions, what kind of questions to ask, how to elaborate the requirement. So you learn that. You also learn how to document it such that the technical team can understand it.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask Raju was I think it's more like doing the job seems very simple, right? The concept is very easy to understand.
Right.
It's the interview process where I think most of the sweat is, like, cause I want to be able to be prepared enough to pass that part. Getting the job done, I feel like I could do it. But is there something you will be able to provide or prepare us for as far as interviews goes? Because some of these questions are so tough.
Right. We do that. So whenever we cover each of these topics, right? So we'll make sure that it's all all the possible interview questions in each of those topics are covered, and and all the interview questions are also addressed from that perspective.
Right. One thing I would also I guess, by profession, you're a business analyst, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the topics when you talk, if you share some of the things you do on a day-to-day kind of routine, I think that will also help mentally for us to picture it. So that when we're talking to the interviewer, we're sounding like we actually do the job,
Right. So see that's the expectation, Aisha, and like I said, right, we are not just going to theoretically learn something, right? It's all on the job, right? So we'll pick up a project, and then we'll have those simulation sessions, right, where we'll assume that there is a business guy, and then how we are going to interact with them, and then there's a technical person, how we are going to communicate our requirements. So we'll spend time onto that, right? So you'll get that real-time feeling when you work onto the project. So it's not just talking about some concept and theoretical concept and just leaving it there. We're going to apply that to the project that we're going to pick it up. It's all the projects that you're seeing, all the documents that you're prepared, that you're looking here. So we'll prepare that, right? For example, this was a project on a store management, right? So how do you structure your discussions, and what kind of questions should you ask, right? How would you structure your illustration sessions? How would you document that, right? So you're going to learn each of those in detail, and if you look at some of these deliverables which you are going to create for that particular project, we are going to do that in the class. And not only that, I'm also going to give some assignments, which again, I cannot enforce that into the class, but once I get that, we'll discuss that in the classroom, and then you'll get that specific feedback of where where you can improve or where you're going wrong. You'll get that specific feedback. Okay,
Sure.
So we'll have those sessions in the classroom. Like I said, it's all job oriented, and then we're trying to learn something for the job, and not just for some it's not just a university course that you're offering, right? It's more like we want to get into the job, so we'll learn what needs to be done to get the job. Yeah. Anita, I see that you joined in a little late, and that's because of our miscommunication. I just realized Raja sent you an email mentioning.
I just got the email now, so.
I know.
When does that start?
So it would start at 8 p.m. Eastern time, Anita. So from tomorrow on, log in at that same time. It would be the same link. And we just, I gave an overview about what we are going to learn. So we didn't actually start the course, I would say. I just gave a brief overview about what a business analyst would do in the project and all. We'll look at it, in more detail from tomorrow's session on. So you didn't miss much. Don't worry about it. So when we start our session tomorrow, I think we'll deep dive and then learn each of those topics.
So it's 1 hour before you started the session, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Oh, can you please give the recorded session for this one?
Sure, I'll share that with you.